All right. Thank you all again for attending our KHS alumni webinar panel. And I got to say, I am incredibly excited. And I want to thank you all again for making time to be here this evening. I think this is a great opportunity for our current KHS students to reach out to successful alumni and be able to ask those questions that I think, we can all reflect back and wish we had someone we could have asked these questions to. So thank you again for the opportunity to be here. And I have Jeffrey on my screen. So Jeffrey, I will start with a brief introduction for you. So Jeffrey Baugh is a physician assistant right here in Cache Valley for the Cache Valley Dermatology. So Jeffrey, thank you again for being here. And anything else you'd like to add? Perfect. And then let's see, I'm going to go down my line. I have Lori Olson. So very excited to have you here this evening, Lori. So Lori is a physical therapist. She is employed by Intermountain Healthcare and is also associated with USU Athletics. So thank you again for being here, Lori.
You're welcome.
And let's see, we have Wayne. So Wayne, I'm glad we were able to find a time to bring you back to our large scale webinar here this evening. So Wayne is please correct me if I'm wrong, Wayne, a third-year DO medicine student at Rocky Vista University in Southern Utah.
Actually, second year, but yes.
Second year. Okay, wonderful. Well, third year is going to be here before we know it.
It will be. But thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here, Wayne. Really excited because not only do we have different professions and career paths represented this evening, we have different kind of phases of career. So I think it'd be really interesting that I think we can provide a really great resource to our current students. And working my way down the line here, we have Dr. Jonathan Knott. He is here from Wyoming, well, virtually here, from Wyoming Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, from the Cheyenne Regional Medical Group. So John, thank you again for making time to be here this evening.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And let me see here. I just want to see if, yes, and Trevor Anderson was able to join. That is wonderful. So just an introduction for Trevor. So Trevor is a Logan Nathan native, and he is in his third year of chiropractor school at the Palmer College of Chiropractic in Iowa. And his specialty is sports rehab and extremity care. And I thought this was pretty cool, kind of bringing it back to Cache Valley is the plan after graduation. So really excited to have you on here as well, Trevor.
Yeah, thank you.
Perfect. And I'd like to kind of pass it all to you, and I'll try to do so in the same order here. So Jeffrey, any initial kind of words of advice before we jump into our formal questions?
Now, is this words of advice for anything from entering freshmen all the way up to, I guess, those that are maybe pursuing postgraduate?
Yes. If it's something that comes to mind, I have no doubt it will be valuable information. So by all means, it can be kind of pretty fairly broad.
You know, words of advice that I would have right off would be definitely get involved, make as many connections as you possibly can. This would be if they're pursuing if it's a healthcare career that they're looking into, you almost can't shadow soon enough. So if you can make connections with providers, offices, it's really going to pay off to solidify a specialty that you may be interested in, and just to be able to ask questions and really start to grow in the field. They say sometimes in medicine that the subspecialty chooses you. I don't know if Dr. Knott feels that way, but you gravitate towards a certain specialty and you just feel really at home there. You feel like you can really make a difference. And the sooner you get into those offices and into those other environments, the happier you're going to be. I think the easier it's going to be able to start to make some of those decisions. But
and great advice. I couldn't agree more. That is wonderful. I'd like to pass it on to Lori. Any kind of initial words of advice before we dive into some more formal questions?
Right. I definitely want to kind of add on to that of just trying to start getting that experience and just touching base. Like if you want to do something medical, I think if you start to just put your foot in the door somewhere, you start to, not only do you get to see where you're at and what people are there, you get to get a sense of all the different jobs that could be possibilities, and it really opens up your mind as far as just the excitement of different kinds of jobs and different kinds of days that you'll be able to kind of have. I also think, you know, you're not just getting the experience, you're doing lots of things. You're trying to figure out, do you just love it? Do you go home just so excited that you want to do more? I think it helps with just, you know, getting excited about what you're doing, kind of help you get through your undergrad because you see a purpose. It also gives you these connections that are going to help you, you know, for letters of recommendation for down the road. And it sometimes closes a door where you go somewhere and you just don't feel like that's really for you, and that's okay, because then you can kind of take a step and do something different. But I think sometimes it's also talking to maybe parents, or just understanding that there needs to be some volunteering going on. Maybe it's not a job. And that's tough to do as a college kid. You're busy and you've got lots to do, but it can just make, if you can start early, you're not trying to cram in those hours or trying to get those experiences later. You're kind of spreading it out throughout your school year. The other thing I probably would just advise on is, if you're going to go to the medical route, is just really take your studies seriously and just getting those good grades, you know, whatever you're having to do to kind of get those good grades and get the best that you can do in each class. I think that makes a lot easier, because once you decide what you want to be, it's really hard to have to go back and take classes over and do that type of thing. So,
Great advice. Well said indeed. I'd like to pass it on to Wayne. So Wayne, any advice to get us kicked off for this evening?
I really like what they've said so far. I feel like doing as much volunteering or just shadowing as much as you can with a variety of specialties, just to get a feel of what it is that you like and don't like, and just to explore all the different professions that are available to you. I feel like that makes a big difference. And like she had said, you get to make connections through those as well, of potential people who could give you letters of recommendation, or even just friends. Or there are multiple physicians that I shadowed that they said, hey, if after in med school, if you need a rotation, let me know. I'd be happy to let you come rotate with me. So just being able to make those connections right now, I think will make a big difference long term. And then just not closing doors on what, you know, if you decide I'm going to only do PT, or I'm only going to do OT, or whatever it may be, you know, just being willing to shadow other things and just see a variety of things and recognize what you really do want to do. And maybe if there's something else that you would like to do as well. So I think that's really good advice that they gave to go do those things.
Well said. Thank you so much. I'd like to pass it on to John Knott. Any additional advice or aspects you'd like to offer?
Yeah, I think everybody said a lot of really good stuff, and it's all kind of following the same theme, where somebody told me a long time ago that whatever you do, do it because you love it, not because it pays good money. Kind of what all these guys have been saying is, you really have to take as much opportunity to explore every avenue, whether it's healthcare or anything else, to see how well you actually fit. Because, you know, the road it takes to get to the end, there's no way you're going to survive if it's not something you're doing purely because you love doing it.
And well said. You have to love it. You're going to spend a lot of time on this path. And again, it could be the make or break moment, you know, that whether you can be successful, you do need to enjoy it. Very well said. Trevor, anything else you'd like to add as well?
Yeah, kind of just bouncing off the same ideas as everyone else, but I'd say go ahead and go shadow. And then when you do those shadowings, try to be very blunt with the person you're shadowing with. I think asking those hard questions, I think really finding out what that profession entails as far as the depth of the schooling, the amount of years, what the financial situation is going to be like, going through it and afterwards, and kind of kind of what it really takes, kind of the grit. I think when it comes to getting a degree in the kinesiology and health sciences department, it's almost necessary to go on to a little bit more school in order to get a job anymore. And I think kind of it's already been said, but I think really being able to kind of find your interests and being able to find something you're passionate about, and then being able to be really active about finding out what it is you like, and then go find people that are like the same things you do and see what they do and how they do it. I think that's the way to learn.
Great advice. Well, thank you all for getting us started with that first round here. I'll switch up the order. So Trevor, we're going to have you go first on this next one. Just give you a little bit of a heads up there. All right. So a little bit more specific detail here. So when did you know you wanted to pursue your chosen career path? And just because we do have a few more attendees dropping in, if you could kind of restate your field of interest, that may help them a little bit if you don't mind.
Yeah, no problem. So I'm currently in chiropractic school. I originally, so my family's all been in healthcare for, a couple generations now. I'm kind of the black sheep of the group, I could say, by coming out and doing chiropractic. But I think I found out my sophomore year at USU. I really kind of sat down. I was doing all the pre-med requisites, thinking I was going to do kind of orthopedics, and that was kind of what I wanted to do. And then realizing I liked being able to be on the kind of front side of things. I wanted to be kind of the prehab to people's illnesses and complications. And so kind of figured out the best way that I could deal with people's lifestyle changes. So I, sat down and was like, I want to work on people's physical activity. I want to work on their sleep. I want to work on their nutrition. And when I panned it all out and asked a couple of my friends and family, they're all like, the scope of practice of chiropractic is kind of broad. And so I figured let's give it a try. And I shadowed like crazy. And my sophomore year, it really kind of panned out and I really had more of a trajectory of where I wanted to go. So that's kind of when I decided.
That's great to hear. And thank you for sharing. That's wonderful. But we'll keep in that reverse order if that's all right. So John, any insight? How did you find your chosen career path?
Well, it was a pretty long and developing road, I think. Initially I started out at SLIC, the community college, and took a bunch of trade classes and wanted to be a welder and wanted to be a carpenter and, furniture building, and then started getting into nutrition biology, but graduated from SLIC and transferred up to Utah State. And the science and biology is really what kind of captured me, and working with athletes was a big deal, and studying physiology and kinesiology was really interesting to me. So after 3 years of undergrad and then another 2 years of grad school with the department, I was definitely wanted to go to medical school, but I kind of knew that with my mechanical interest, it was really pretty much orthopedics was the only medical specialty that I wanted to get into. So then after another 4 years of med school, 5 years of residency, and a year of fellowship, almost 20 years later, I finally graduated, and I couldn't be happier with it.
Wonderful. That road is worth it when you're truly doing something you love. So thank you for sharing. All right, Wayne, would you mind sharing how you found your chosen career path?
Yeah, so for me, it was probably, I think it was after my second or third year at USU. I was planning, so I initially started out wanting to do occupational therapy, and then I'd switched to physical therapy and worked in a physical therapy clinic. And then I just kind of had the thought to look into medical school a little bit more. And it ended up that the majority of the classes that I was already taking for PT school lined up for what I needed for med school. And as I started to shadow more, then I realized that was kind of the path that I wanted to pursue a little bit more. And so for me, it was kind of a little bit later in the game. Most people, they kind of figure that out after their maybe first or second year, but it was a little bit later for me by the time that I realized that I wanted to do medical school instead of PT or OT school. But yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing. And let's pass it back to Lori. So Lori, how did you find your chosen career path?
Yeah, so I started a little bit young. I had a physical therapist work on me kind of in junior high-ish, and really questioned her a lot of just what her day was and what her job was. And I kind of gravitated right then of, just wanting to go the PT route. I think I got a little lucky because I was young and just took off and did it when I started in college. But I did do a lot of volunteering during college, and I think I just loved the classes. I loved the volunteering. Everything just, kept being exciting. And so I never really looked back. But I feel like I got lucky to just kind of jump on that path and kind of head that route. The only thing that I think that I switched on is initially I wanted, I think I'd had kind of a bad experience at a sports clinic when I was volunteering and felt it wasn't as exciting and not, I don't know. It wasn't, I wanted something maybe a little bit more. And so during my PT years, I did a lot of volunteering and clinicals in more extreme kind of brain injury, spinal cord injuries, and thought maybe I really wanted to go that route. And during that time, I definitely found out it wasn't for me. I don't feel like it was my love, and kind of gravitated back to sports. And I feel like that was more who I was. It was more where my love was, more where of understanding the athlete. And so I kind of gravitated back to that and got lucky to kind of be in my position now. So
Thank you for sharing. And if we can pass it off to Jeffrey, how did you find your chosen career path?
You know, I can relate with Wayne. I was a little bit of a late bloomer. So for any of the students, if you're ever wondering that, you know, do I have it all figured out? Don't give yourself a guilt trip, right? If you don't, you know, it's a process, and it takes time, and you'll find the right fit. Yeah, I was probably into my three and a half years into it, almost with 2 bachelor's degrees at that point in time, right? And because I was a late bloomer, you know, kind of late to the game, I was late in shadowing and all of that. That's why that was my number one recommendation initially, was to do that early, right? But as soon as I did put in the work, and I was trying to figure out, you know, is it dentistry? Is it PT? Is it, you know, primary care, pediatrics, orthopedics? I was fortunate enough to shadow in all of those and even other fields. And I loved so many aspects of all of those. So I can see how each of these personalities, right, from Lori to Wayne to everybody, I mean, it just really seems like it was the right fit, and that you're happy in doing that. And it's exciting to see that. Yeah, for me, I finally, I was able to shadow some fantastic dermatologists who later became fine mentors for me. And yeah, thankfully, happy ending.
That's great to hear. Wonderful. All right, kind of let me glance at my list here of some questions. So, and let's see, I know we kind of jumped off with advice. So reflecting back, so were there things that you found yourself saying most satisfied with while you were here at USU? And it's Trevor, when you're ready, go ahead. Were there certain experiences or a course or some kind of activity? And it doesn't need to be related to KHS specifically. I think this is a great opportunity to say, okay, what did you appreciate most when you're here? So like, I'll be honest, I love Aggie ice cream. I have never had better ice cream ever in my life. And that is definitely going to be a highlight. I'll always know. And Trevor, what about you?
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Alrighty. So I'd say for me, kind of KHS related, but I really appreciated having the like strength and conditioning course that was going on up there at Utah State, and the facilities they had. Having a convenient gym on campus like that it's really nice. So that was always a big plus in my mind. As far as an accomplishment though, honestly, I found my wife and I got married and started a family while I was at Utah State, and that's been something that I think a lot of people can look at as a kind of a hindrance maybe, but for me, it's been what's helped me push through my undergrad and to push through my years so far in graduate school. And so I think having met there at Utah State wasn't by coincidence. And I think it's really helped me and pushed me to try to be, you know, kind of the best, you know, chiropractor and healthcare professional that I can be. So I'd say definitely my wife and my family, having met at Utah State, that's probably my greatest accomplishment.
That's wonderful, Trevor. Thank you for sharing. All right, John, same question to you. When you're looking back, are there certain things you found yourself, say, most satisfied with, certain accomplishments, or it could be just something memorable that you recall about USU?
I think the 2 years that I spent getting my master's degree there was probably some of the best 2 years of my life. I think I had a really excellent opportunity to work with Dale Wagner there. And for my project, he and I were out climbing mountains down in Mexico. And you just don't get a chance to get experiences like that. And in the long run, it ended up making me stand out as a candidate for every step that came after that. And, not a lot of people have that kind of background. And I think it was extremely beneficial getting into medical school and subsequently into residency. And overall, it was just such a good time doing something so fun and getting research dollars for it and getting an education out of it. So it was a great time.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing, John. I got to go back and find your thesis now. That sounds quite interesting. I'll have to talk to Dale.
It was pretty short, so you'll have to look pretty hard to find it.
You know what? I'm good at finding stuff. I can probably find it in a day, I'm sure. Wayne, looking back, same question. Are there certain things you find yourself most satisfied with, or certain accomplishments or certain memories that stand out?
Off of what you had said, Sarah, I think just trying to really enjoy your time there at Utah State. I look back with at my time there with fondness, just enjoying for one, like the beauty of Cache Valley. It's just so pretty being up there on campus, except for January and February with the morning wind. That's terrible, but the rest of the time is just wonderful. So just enjoy that time and getting out and meeting people is a lot of fun. But going back to what Trevor said as well, have fun in school, but don't be afraid to work hard as well. So for me, I got married, and by the time I graduated, I had 2 kids as well. And so, I mean, there's a time during school where I was working part-time, going to school full-time, studying for the MCAT, and I had my wife and 2 kids at home. And so I was very busy trying to make all of those things pan out and work together. But it was a hard time as far as that goes, but it was still a great time. So my advice is, for me, that was one of my greatest accomplishments during graduate school, is just trying to do all of those things, and don't be afraid of trying to do those hard things, whether it be, don't be afraid if you're married of having kids, if you're afraid of, I don't know how this is going to work out, you can make it work out. Or if it's just getting married, or if you're not married, but just trying to do your classes and research and all that, whatever it may be, just don't be afraid of working hard. And like Lori said, trying to excel and do well in your classes, because it will pay off in the end, whatever the hard thing is that you decide to end up doing. But still make time to stop and smell the flowers and enjoy the beauty of being an undergraduate and of being at Utah State.
Great overview. Yeah, don't be afraid to live your life. You got to enjoy the experience and the process along the way. Lori, any additional comments to add to that?
Yeah, for me, the one thing that really stood out for me, I loved human dissection class. I thought that was amazing. I know it wasn't very many kids got to get into that class, and I just felt really thankful to be in that. I thought it was just memorable, something that you can just remember forever. So I just thought that was a really neat class that they offered, and would highly recommend that. I was a student athlete, so it was just very memorable. I had a great time being an athlete. I was extremely amazed at the support of the university, of people in the community, of boosters that would take care of us, that would, cheer for us and took care of us. And that was just a great experience. It was very hard. It was very hard to be an athlete and be a good student at the same time. And that's where I feel like my advice would be to try to enjoy it more, but it was hard to get good grades and have fun at the same time. You kind of had to choose one or the other, but I feel like you can do it. You can do it all if you just have, that drive and that focus and kind of a purpose for it all. But I'm very grateful for Utah State and for the opportunity to be an athlete, to be a student, and that it kind of, projected me to be into this position that I'm in now, to be able to treat the athletes now. So.
And I think we're incredibly lucky to have you here, to say the least. If I had to get hurt, you know, I would like to see you as my physical therapist. And I'd like to pass it off to Jeffrey. So kind of reflecting back, just to kind of reflect back on our question, were there any things you were most satisfied with, or certain accomplishment or experiences that stand out?
You know, like many have mentioned, you know, Wayne mentioned, Lori mentioned it, you'll never have any regrets really applying yourself academically, right? So I know it might not be the funnest thing to hang out in the library, right? Studying hard and really making sure those grades are good. But you'll never regret it, you know, as you're applying to schools or post-grad programs, it really pays off. And so definitely put in the time. You'll be glad you did it. But at the same time, as best you can, shoot for balance. Even in our lives right now, we don't have perfect balance, right? We probably never will, but make sure that you have fun, you know, get involved with a lot of the activities. There are so many amazing activities. Utah State does such a great job. And, you know, I have to, you know, give props to even the college there. I mean, what an incredible faculty. You know, they're so supportive, so insightful, and very passionate about what they're doing. So grateful for all of you. But yeah, be you, follow those passions, right? As you're getting letters of recommendation, and even as you're writing kind of those personal statements, right? That you'll do for post-grad work, man. And even through the interview process, they want you to be you, right? So, you know, get up to Beaver Mountain and ski or snowboard, right? Get involved in athletics, cheer super loud, right? But be you, and that uniqueness will pay off, and it'll show through in the interview process and in those personal statements. So, yeah.
I love that, Jeff. That is perfect. Be you. And I think you brought up a good point. So I just want to kind of open this question up to the group, and feel free to chime in if you'd like to share. I think one thing we at least I don't see us talking about it too much at this level is, you know, how do you prepare for those interviews, or like what questions will you get? And some things I hear often referred to, you know, how well do you manage your time? Or how good are you at time management, right? What outside activities are you involved in? How do you deal with stress, right? How do you deal with the day to day? So as they're, you know, trying to juggle a lot of different aspects, and they're preparing for, say, these interviews, any specific tips or tricks you would recommend or advise them to do? And I'll open it up to the floor, because I know it's a little more impromptu question there. And as we're mulling that over, just for the attendees, feel free to drop in any questions you like into the chat box. I'll be able to see them here on my end. And then I do have a few more specific kind of career allied health specific questions here in a moment. So as they're preparing for interviews, anything you would recommend, not recommend, things that they should think about as they start to transition to those steps?
I'm one of the more recent people to go through the interview process, so I'll chime in. I would say, so when I did it, we did like I don't think they do it anymore, but they had a committee letter. And so for us, what you would do is you would go, and some of the professors at Utah State, they would offer to interview you. And so you would basically come to a mock interview with them. I did 3 different people, and then they would write a little paragraph or something about how your interview was, the letter recommendation for you, and then they'd all send that to Yvonne, and she would compile them into a letter. But I feel like that practice of practicing interviewing was probably the biggest help for me when I actually got there. Having gone through the process of doing real interviews helped me to be more comfortable once I was in a real one. And so, like I said, I don't think that they do that anymore, but if you're able to find somebody with interviewing experience that you can set up a mock interview with, I feel like that's really helpful to be able to talk to them, get their feedback of what you can do and improve on going forward. Along with that, one of my friends that also did medical school up at Utah State. I think he ended up going to like 12 interviews, which is a lot. But he felt like he wanted that experience of going to all those and improving and getting better on each one. And so I feel like it's kind of hard to find, but in my opinion, that's one of the biggest helps for interviewing is just practicing for those interviews. So however you can find those opportunities, I feel like that would be the biggest help.
And that's a great suggestion, Wayne. I'd say for anyone who's interested, reach out to me. We'll see what we can do to get something in the works, or reach out to Yvonne with pre-health advising to see if there could be some opportunities available. I mean, that's a great suggestion. Any other comments for kind of that topic as they start to transition to interviews and, you know, do's or don'ts or anything like that?
I was just thinking that, you know, going after finishing residency, throughout residency and medical school, I probably read thousands and thousands of applicants' personal statements, and they really all start sounding the exact same after a while. They start being really boring and really dry. And, you know, everybody's got an experience that changed their life, and they all start sounding the same. And so I really think echoing what Jeff said, and making sure that the hardest part is being you and figuring out how to get that personal statement to represent you as a person. And when you get to the interview, making sure that you're the same person that you presented in your personal statement, and really just make sure that anything that you talk about is something that you're passionate about and you know inside and out, because interviewers will see through kind of a superficial understanding of your research or something like that in a heartbeat, and realize that, you know, you were just a grunt worker and didn't really care or didn't really put any effort into it. So, you know, the biggest thing is being yourself, figuring out how to get that to show through in a unique personal statement. Just like Wayne was saying, the more people that you can get to proofread statements, the more people you can practice interviews with, just to help you get more comfortable, because it really is a skill. Depending on which route you choose, there can be a lot of interviews and there can be a lot of personal statements you got to write. So you might as well start getting good at it now.
I love that. Couldn't agree more. And it really is true. Practice does help, and you have to be your authentic self. I mean, truly, own who you are, be comfortable in who you are. And I'm sitting here, I was smirking a moment ago because I'm like, oh yeah, I have been on both sides for different phases, interviewee and interviewer. And John, very well said. You know, if someone is being true to themselves, and, you know, are they excited? Are they engaged? It is clear as day. So it is. I think it is a really great way to make that mark and help leave a really good positive impression as you start to choose, you know, what career path may be of interest. So I'm going to transition for a moment here. Let's see. So Jeff, I got a few, let's see, like two main theme questions here that were a little more specific to physician, for you being a physician assistant, but I think this is also fairly beneficial for everyone. So if we can open it up after you, that'd be great. One specific question was, and it sounds like they're quite interested in your practice. Do you allow shadowing where you practice, or do you have recommendations, say, around the Cache Valley area?
Yeah, if I can, I'll answer that. Maybe that second one, talking about
by all means,
about shadowing.
Yeah.
That's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
We sure do. We do. Through kind of the initial COVID, you know, outbreak, of course, a lot of that changed a bit, but we do allow shadowing now. And some of my best recommendations would be come dressed very well. Some of these guys, I'm sure all of them will agree. We have had shadows where they show up just in a t-shirt and jeans, and that definitely doesn't put your best foot forward necessarily. But yeah, if you can come dressed in essentially your best, right?
Yeah.
Ready to take notes, ready to ask questions, to really feel engaged, right? And give it your best shot. Those are some recommendations, but yeah, we want to give back, and we want to provide those initial opportunities to discover this field of choice, right? Or to help you rule it out and keep moving, right? That won't
Yeah.
ever offend us. If you say, dermatology is definitely not for me, I'm moving on to orthopedics, right? Or to pediatrics or whatnot. So we want to help with that.
Wonderful. Well, great to hear. And kind of on that, let's open it up kind of on the theme of shadowing. Obviously, that's a huge emphasis within vast majority of these career fields and some others as well. Any suggestions or advice when it comes to shadowing? Who to reach out to, or any recommendations? And kind of open to the floor.
Can I add one thing, Sarah?
Oh, please do. Yes.
I would say when you come to shadow, I would either turn off your cell phone or maybe leave it in, a bag or something like that. Again, you can tell in a short period of time if someone's engaged and really passionate about where they're being, if they're there with the right attitude to learn, or if they're a little bit distracted. And so leaving the cell phone at home, coming ready again to take notes and just to learn as much as you possibly can. And that makes such a big difference.
Oh, it definitely does. The mindset should be, as soon as you walk into that door, you have left the outside world out there, right? So other distractions, other items going on, put that off to the side and really take advantage of the opportunity in front of you. Because I think the shadowing experiences are amazing, because it's either going to help you confirm what you're interested in or rule it out, but you're growing and learning. And this is a chance to really, for them to represent themselves on that first early career phase. This is how you're going to represent yourself. How do you want to be viewed? How do you want to be seen? And hopefully we hope that they represent themselves as the best early professionals that they can.
I just wanted to comment on that. And the shadowing is really a double-edged sword. We've talked a lot about how it's a great opportunity to go figure out if you like that job or if you like that, subspecialty or whatever. But when it comes down to it, if you do end up liking that job, then you're going to need to ask those people a favor. And that favor is going to be, will you stick your name and neck out on the line to say that I am worthy of getting into this professionalism? And I think that's what a lot of people don't realize, is that you can really make or break your chances with a face-to-face experience shadowing somebody. When you're writing personal statements or a lot of those other methods that you have to put yourself out, you can hide behind words and you can edit and adjust and change things as much as you need to before you submit a final. But in a face-to-face interview or a face-to-face shadowing, that's really where you make or break your chances of being able to get a recommendation or a referral or more help from these people. Showing up in your best dress, absolutely critical. Turning your cell phone off or leaving it in the car, totally critical. The other big thing too is you kind of touched on showing up prepared, Jeff. And it looks like I think we said you're working in a dermatology clinic. If you're going to go shadow Jeff, then before you even consider it, you better be reading up on dermatology, reading up on what the roles of a physician assistant are. Like, you got to walk in that door, really prepared for what you're going to be seeing, what you're going to be doing, and have a list of questions in your back pocket that if you get a chance to, that you can spit off a question without stopping and having to think about it. So that it just makes you look that much more engaged. So you can't just show up in a t-shirt and shorts to this. You've really got to be prepared and know your stuff walking into the door, because again, like I said, yeah, you can figure out whether you like it, but in the end, the reason you're doing it is because if you do like it, you're going to need their help, and they're only going to want to help you if you really show them that you care about it.
Yeah, you're representing yourself and you're asking for help from these individuals. You got to step up. You got to come ready and prepared 110%, and with no hesitation there. Well said. Wayne, I saw that you unmiked. Did you have a additional comment?
Yeah, just one more thing, more like logistical with shadowing, something that I found. With being in Logan, a lot of times you think that the only opportunity to shadow is at the hospital, which to shadow at the hospital, there's a lot of hoops to jump through as far as vaccinations, background checks, and stuff like that. But I found if you're willing to search for a lot of the more private offices, whether it be physical therapy or a physician or whatever it may be, a lot of times it was easier to shadow in those clinics because they didn't have all of the hoops that you had to jump through. So if you're having troubles with finding shadowing opportunities or volunteer opportunities, I would look at more of like the private clinics and the small clinics and things like that. I just found with my experience that it was a lot easier to find those experiences there compared to the bigger organizations like the hospital. Nothing wrong with shadowing at the hospital. I work there, but I'm just saying it's easier sometimes less hoops to jump through.
And thanks for bringing that up. I think that's good to point out that there's all kinds of different environments. So even if let's say you know exactly what profession you want to go into, that profession may have certain specialties, may have a slightly different job scope, even within different environments. So especially with a lot of private-based offices within the Cache Valley area, I think that's a great suggestion for our students. Any additional questions kind of on shadowing? We do have a question in the chat. I haven't read it yet, but I do want to review it here in just a moment.
I just like to add on the PT side, because I think with physical therapy, there's a lot, it's harder to get into a clinic. And Wayne is right that a lot of the smaller clinics have really done well as far as letting volunteers in. I feel like it's been a little bit easier. I know that a lot of kids, they just want to get like a physical therapy aid job, and they're just waiting for that aid job and kind of applying to those jobs. And to be honest, we rarely hire an aide without them being one of our volunteers. And it's kind of a no-brainer. You're gonna hire someone that's volunteered with you. They've already given you free time. They've already showed you their ability, and it's really, really hard to get a job without doing that volunteering. And so start there. Almost always, if you do a great job, it'll turn into that, or great job as a volunteer, it'll turn into a job. And I think sometimes kids don't understand that you're gonna have to kind of do that shadowing, that free volunteering work, which is hard to do when you need money, but I think it's really well worth it. And a lot of times, especially on the physical therapy end of it, it will turn into a job. Those jobs turn over a lot, and just do an awesome job as a volunteer. Pretend it is a job, and just like everybody else has said. And a lot of times if you do a good job on that, you might just walk yourself into a job, and then your experience is even greater. So,
and that's great advice. There's a previous student I worked with this past semester, and she has a very similar story. Came in as a volunteer, very, very goal oriented, very intrinsically motivated, and it soon actually turned into 2 different positions at a local clinic. So she was an aide, and then she was able to help fill in at a little bit more of like a admin reception desk role. And it just gave her that much more experience. And not only did she, appreciate the viewpoint of being a PT aide, but she even learned more about filling and processing and all of those ins and outs, that depending on what type of career field she would want to go into, if she wanted to stay in a more, small business, she already has a huge leg up to understand and appreciate all of those steps involved. So yes, don't be afraid. Got to jump in and volunteer, right? I love it. This is awesome. I'm going to open it up to this chat question here, so bear with me. I haven't read it yet, so let me just skim through it. Perfect. Okay. So surgeons and physicians have opportunities to conduct research to make advancements in the medical field and surgical procedures in other areas. Are there opportunities like this available to PAs? So I guess this is a little more specific to you, Jeff, but I think we could also open it up to other career fields as well. Are there opportunities to conduct research, be involved in research, and help give back within certain career fields? So Jeff, when you're ready, and then I'd say let's open up to the field, because I think it's very applicable to a lot of our professions, all of them really.
Yeah, there really is no shortage. There are plenty of opportunities for, I would say, for PAs, DOs, MDs, and others, right? Yeah, in fact, in many PA schools, they have various tracks, right? So they have educational tracks, clinical tracks, even research tracks. We certainly did in the school that I went to, and yeah, you can pick that track if you have a passion or interest in specifically doing research, or publishing during or thereafter school. And so if that is of interest, dive in. And I'm with Lori and Wayne and others who have said that, within that realm of research, if it just needs to be that you're volunteering and you're doing any little bit of grunt work that needs to be done, get in there and learn. And then you may play a larger part later on down the road, but you'll gain the experience. And I think maybe just as important, you'll gain their trust, right? That you want to be there and you're there for the right reasons.
Great insight, Jeff. So this question hits me a little bit more. So as a postdoctoral research fellow, I do a lot of research, and I have the privilege to get involved with some outside projects. So this project here, this alumni panel, was a passion project of my own that got approval. So I was excited to take advantage of it. But a lot of what I do day to day is research, and I have probably an undergraduate student probably reach out on average once a day through the whole entire academic year. And it's usually about 1% to 3% that really stand out, that follow through, that show up, that respond to that email, that show up in the lab, that go that extra step. And there's all kinds of cool opportunities involved. So expand on this question a little bit broader. Have any of you, I guess, been involved in research? Is that something of interest, or any kind of tips or recommendations kind of on that theme?
Research is required throughout the whole process of getting into med school and residency and beyond. And so it's something that you've got to at least have some degree of passion about. And I think I've been involved in all kinds of different, across every spectrum of research projects. And there's research projects that you do because you don't have a choice, you need to build your resume, and those can really suck sometimes. But when you can find a research topic or project that you're actually passionate about, it makes all the difference in the world. I've never been a big fan of doing research. I've had to do a ton of it just because to get here. But I mentioned that project with Dale, Dr. Wagner, and it was like, it really opened my eyes to how much fun and interesting research can be when the project is actually something that you're passionate about and that you're interested about. So yeah, there are projects along the way that you just have to do as stepping stones to get to more interesting stuff. But when you do find a project or a topic that you can actually develop or inspire a passion about, it really opens your eyes to how fun and interesting and exciting research really can be.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. And I think it's important to acknowledge it doesn't always have to be always something we always love, but maybe we understand our role in the greater good, or its emphasis, or, what type of application it may be. I smirked. I had a pretty unique project that involved a lot of video coding. I didn't think I'd be a video expert, security camera expert, but that's what I did through the COVID pandemic here. So, so we get creative. We take unique approaches when we need to. I do have one specific question here I want to address to Lori, but before I do so, any other questions come along around this topic of, any comments about research or how to give back in a research form in your particular field or anything like that? All right, I just want to make sure I didn't miss anybody. So Lori, I sent you this question a little bit earlier today, and thought this was quite interesting. So I'll kind of set it up for all of us here on the call. The student mentioned that they are interested in going to physical therapy school and they want to specifically work with athletes. Therefore, my questions are aimed at you, Lori, and with one major specific question. So this individual's gone kind of a mixed mixed answers about specializing in sports rehab. They wanted to know, your thoughts and insight about being a sport or orthopedic specialist, and would that provide any kind of advantage to help them as they kind of move forward in a sports rehab oriented career? Is this something you recommend? Any insight, advice for them?
Yes, that's really a common question. I get that question a lot. It seems like the sports world is kind of what draws some people that just want to make sure that they're working with the athletes. And so a lot of physical therapists want to head that route. I I feel like my route was a little lucky in a sense of how I got there, but it seems like there is a lot of ways that you can make yourself more um, ready to go that route. And my few suggestions, I don't know if there's a perfect way to just make sure that you're going to be working with athletes as a PT. So I don't think there's just the perfect path to go that route. But the few suggestions and kind of what I've seen is it kind of goes back to that volunteering of kind of keeping yourself involved in some kind of sports aspect, whether it's your volunteering, it's your clinicals while you're at PT school. They'll make you do a variety, but if you can do the majority of them at some kind of sports, facility, that can really help you. You're starting to make those connections. Again, it's that networking in the sports world. I also think there's kind of a I don't even know what the word is for it, but a lot of people say they want to be in the sports world. A lot of doctors will say they want to be in the sports world, but when they're being called at 10 o'clock at night and the quarterback needs to be seen the next morning, they don't have their phone on, and so some of it is, in the sports world, it's a little bit more crucial in everybody's mind that the athlete be seen, that, MRIs get done, that physical therapy gets done. And I think you have to have that love for the athlete, love for the sport, love for, sneaking someone in that day that you have no time for, and you're going to see that person. That's where people are going to see that love. And I think, the doctors that have that, they're the ones that get the call again of going to see the athlete, and the ones that are going to kind of stay in that sports world. And so some of it, I think, is having that love for the athlete, because sometimes it's squeezing them in a day that you don't have them have time for. But on the kind of the academic side, there is lots of exciting opportunities now where they have sports residency after your PT program that you can apply to. They're very highly wanted. They're very hard to get into, but again, that's where I think your background comes into play. What you've been doing kind of through your undergrad and through your PT school will come into play, and you get to, you can apply to Ohio State's residency, and you're seeing the Ohio State athletes and getting involved in their medical program, and so there are those residencies that we never had, and so I feel like that's an awesome opportunity to kind of work towards. There are specialties you can get extra, credentials as well. The kind of the orthopedic or sports, I forget what they call it, kind of extra education after your PT program. And I do think those are helpful. I don't know if they're necessary. I think connections are probably your biggest way, and your clinicals. There's so many amazing sports clinicals out there that sometimes you're having to apply for them, but I think it's worth doing all that extra work if that's the route you want to go.
And thanks for providing that insight. That's wonderful. That is really neat to hear. Yeah, I mean, who doesn't want to do, some additional, solid training just to help them set themselves apart if that's the way to go. That's awesome. I think I'd like to open that question up kind of the floor, because it does relate to a lot of our other fields as well. So, John, I think you may have been chiming in there.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, if you were trying to call me at 10 o'clock, I promised my phone was on, but I'll do better next time.
And that, I love that example, Lori, truly, because that's what it takes. It's going to take, those extra steps, finding the time in your day that doesn't exist, but you have to make it fun. You have to find the time. So it's something that our students really need to be aware of as they start to think about these fields. Kind of glancing at the time here, I just want to open it up and see, are there any kind of final thoughts? Any last things you would like to kind of leave our students with as, words of advice or anything of that sort?
I was just clicking around and found a couple of buttons that listed the attendees. And I think I noticed Dr. Wagner was listening to this. And I mentioned him a couple of times already, but I thought I'd take the chance to tell him that he definitely changed my life. So I owe him a lot. So thanks. Thanks, man.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Any other last thoughts here from our panelists?
One thing I want to say is I feel like you're just trying to rush it in your undergrad through your schooling. You just can't wait till it's over. And I feel like that if you're headed to the medical world, I think we're a little, uptight type people anyway, kind of heading that route. But I wish I would have enjoyed it more. I wish I would have enjoyed PT school more and just wanted the end of it to be to the end and enjoy the journey more. Kind of like John said he did 2 years of his master's program, and that was one of his most special years. And I think sometimes you think maybe it's just wasteful years, and they're not. They're developing who you're going to be. You're meeting people who are going to be amazing people in your life. They're going to help form who you become. All your experiences are going to help form that. And I think when you're in your undergrad, you just can't wait till all of it's over. And I look back and I don't know if there could have been more fun time as your college years and special time. And once you get working, you just are working. You work for, for the rest of your life. And I just, to enjoy the journey, because I think in the medical world, it's a long journey, and you're always just wishing for it to be at the end. And I think there's it's okay to just really enjoy each step as you're going through it. So.
Outstanding advice. Yep, got to enjoy the moment, enjoy the process, because that'll be over before you know it, right? Soak in those moments. Any last thoughts from Jeff, Trevor, Wayne?
I just like to second what Lori said. I was going to say the same thing. A lot of times with going in the medical field, we get in the habit of saying, I'll be happy when I'm into PT school, or once I get into med school, then I'll be happy. Or then once you get in there, then you say, I'll be happy when I'm graduated. And then I'll be happy when my debt's paid off. And then, you know what I mean? It just never ends. So you just need to learn to be happy with the stage that you're at. Even though it's okay to look forward to those things, but to find joy in the experiences that you're having right now, because it goes by fast.
It does. It goes by a blink of an eye, and then we wonder where the time is gone. Got to enjoy it. Got to enjoy the moment. Enjoy the process. Let's see. Any last thoughts from you, Jeff or Trevor?
If I could add one thing, you're going to have days, especially, we all probably look at John with admiration because, the process through where he started and where he is right now. I mean, what a long process, so much sacrifice, right? I'm sure, he had days where he wondered, what am I doing? Am I doing the right thing? I think we all do. So I think it's important to write down our goals and the why, to understand the why, because you will have those days, where you have, 8 or 10 finals, in a week. And it's almost punishing, right? But if you can do that, we had to write a little letter to ourselves, as we went into school, and then they kind of resurrected that, halfway through, and we were able to read that letter to ourselves. And it could be a letter of encouragement. It could say, this is why I'm doing it. And I might recommend that you maybe write a little bit of a time capsule, right? A little letter to yourself. And then maybe you can pull it out when you're having a tough day and you're wondering, why am I doing this? Is this the right thing? Because we have those times of discouragement, but you'll get there, right? Do enjoy the process, right? And know that, if this is the mountain that you're shooting for, you'll get there. just stay with it.
Outstanding, Jeff. I love that. Write a letter to yourself and keep kind of put it in a safe spot, and then take it out, take a look at it a little while down the road. You know, if you need that refresher of why. All right. And Trevor, any last thoughts from you?
Yeah, kind of real quick. I actually kind of read about this today. Kind of learning about what bison do when a storm comes by. You know, they turn into it and they face it and they kind of charge on. They don't sit back and wait for it to hit them. I think that's kind of what it is. If you've got dreams, if you got aspirations, and you wanna do stuff, don't turn away. This isn't a time to shy away and to wait for people to hand things to you, because it's not going to happen. You got to kind of put your head down. It's going to be hard. It's going to be tough, but kind of what everyone else has said. Enjoy it. I mean, it's a blessing to have opportunities to grow and to push yourself and to become something that you didn't think you could become. So there's going to be a day when you're looking back and wishing you still had opportunities to show people what you're made of, and prove your professor wrong by taking all those finals and doing really well, or whatever it might be. And so yeah, enjoy it. Find a way to enjoy it. And I think exactly what Jeff had said, as foolish as it may sound, even just write a review of what someone you'd want to have said of your service to them. Write what kind of clinician you want to be, what someone to write about you in a Google review, and see if you can become that person. Try to be, the best provider, the best person, the best caregiver that they've ever been to. And if that's what it is, find your goal, find what it is you want to do, and just dig for it.
And thank you, Trevor. That is wonderful. Well, and I just want to thank you, everyone. I can't thank you enough. I think this will be just an invaluable experience for our students. In about a day or so, I'll make this available on our website, so they can access it and say, okay, I feel like I have a whole new renewed sense of motivation right now just listening to all of you. So thank you again for taking the time to give back to our students. I do truly appreciate it. And thank you. Thank you all. With that, we'll end tonight's webinar.